Hello and welcome to vlog number 26. That means that it's 27th vlog because I like to start these with a zero, like a vlog zero. And I have not made one of these in over a year. Last one I did was like in April of 2019, and we are in May 2020, middle of the pandemic, middle of the lockdown and all of that. And I am playing a game called Final Fantasy IV. So the title says Final Fantasy, and that's only because I want to talk about Final Fantasy in general. I am playing Final Fantasy IV as part of my podcast, the YAF podcast, the Yet Another Final Fantasy podcast, which I love the name of it because in tech there was a small trend, I guess. There was like a recent, not recent, but it was a it was a trend that didn't survive for long, where people would name something by yet another, and then the function of that library or framework or whatever. So there is YAML, which is yet another markup language. I think there is YAST or something like that, which is yet another SEO tool or something like that. Or I don't remember exactly, but there was a whole trend of, things being YA, yet another, and then like a description. So I decided to... Oh my god, they're so secret. Nice. I didn't notice this. So I decided to start a podcast where I go through every single one of the Final Fantasy games. I've already covered... I just noticed that this webcam setup is totally not working. So I moved in the past year. I moved from a house to an apartment. This is my office. And I changed a few things about my setup. One of them that you might not notice is the fact that I'm running Linux only, because my Windows machine behind me, the hard drive on it failed. I've ranted about my hard drive problems on Twitter for like years, and that hard drive finally died, proving that it was just a crappy hard drive. Anyway, so I changed a lot of my setup. One of them is that I'm on a laptop with an extra screen. Once I fix it, I'll be on two screens. And my screens are on these cool little like adjustable arms, so you can like adjust it. And I like to have my screen really high up, but as a result, the webcam up here is really high up too, and it's pointing down, which is not a flattering angle, right? First of all, keep looking down, so it looks like my eyes are half closed. And then the other thing is just the angle from up top is not ideal. It would be good if it was like straight on, but straight on, right, is the game, so that I don't have to strain my eyes looking up or down. So it's convenient for me working. It's not convenient for my webcam. So anyway, so I started this. So yeah, I moved in the past year. I have a new office. I haven't done any vlogs. I've been doing a lot of other things, actually. I've been doing a lot of just coding on the side. And yeah, and so my podcast is about going through each Final Fantasy game by game, and as the intro of the podcast likes to say, section by section, episode by episode, and make a podcast about it. And that's what I'm doing over here. So I went through 1 through 3. I played the first Final Fantasy game. That was my first... I played the first Final Fantasy game. I've never beaten it. I've only played on the main first island area before you get the bridge, because I didn't understand the game. I didn't understand how it worked, what was expected of me, and it was really confusing. And for the first season of the podcast, the first Final Fantasy game, I utilized a guide pretty heavily. One of the reasons I never really liked Final Fantasy games or had a hard time getting into it is because I found them really confusing. I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do. I didn't really understand how I was supposed to figure out the next step on what you need to do in the game. And doing this podcast was kind of a way for me to get through that, and I did. And I'm so far in a situation now where I'm playing Final Fantasy IV, and I'm not looking at the guide because I don't need to. So I played Final Fantasy I. That was a fun game. I really enjoyed it, and there are a lot of times where I keep referring back to it because I now understand why it was such a big deal to people. But I played the remake. So it wasn't like the revolutionary first game, because the first game had a lot of issues, but the remake of it, the GBA remake, was just fantastic. Then I played Final Fantasy II. Whoops, there's Slack. I have 3 different or 4 different Slack organizations, and I get messages all the time. Yeah, so I played Final Fantasy 2. I played the GBA remake of that as well. Do I need to even get... Oh, why can't I see the party's info straight on? Okay, I'm good still. I can still... Let me go ahead and keep doing this. What was I saying? So yeah, I played the Final Fantasy 2 remake. I also played the Final Fantasy 3 remake, which is the one that you can play on PC. The PC remake actually still gets updates. The last update was in March, so a couple months back. They completely revamped the UI. Okay, this is what blows my mind. The timing was perfect for me to play this game because when I was getting into, like, when I was about to start playing it, an update came out that completely revamped the entire UI of the game. So this game was originally built for the DS, and the DS is, touch, right? And so it requires big buttons, and it kind of fills up the entire screen, and it fills up the entire screen because you need to have big buttons to press. Then it came out on mobile. Same deal, and the PC version was just a port of that. So you have these huge buttons everywhere, and somebody came out with a mod that transformed it into kind of like the modern Final Fantasy user interface, where you have the blue, the sidebar, like kind of like this one. You would have the party information on the left, and so on, right? And when that update came out, it was basically like a ripoff of the mod. I didn't see anybody mention anything about it, but it was just really funny. And so as I was playing the game, I got to enjoy the brand new UI that people just loved, and I didn't have to deal with the old UI that worked on mobile and on touchscreens, but didn't work on PC. But now I'm playing Final Fantasy IV. I've played Final Fantasy IV before, the GBA version, from start to finish. I don't remember anything about the game, but what's interesting is playing this game with the perspective that I now have, having played the first 3 games. Right, the first game was there was like no story, not really any story to it, not really any direction, not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of, there's no character development, right? Like, your characters are just who they are. You kind of make up your own story, I want to say, about the heroes, and you don't know, it doesn't have a deep story. The second game kind of abandoned all of the things that people are so used to from Final Fantasy games, especially the fantasy era Final Fantasy games, right? I'm not talking about like Diesel Punk Final Fantasy 7 or, as I call it, Utopia Punk Final Fantasy 10, or like a bright dystopia, I guess. But in the fantasy games, you try to collect all of the crystals, and you have to, and you have like orphans everywhere. So Final Fantasy 2 abandoned a lot of that and focused instead a lot more on the story aspect of it. And so it was a lot more quest driven. You had a base of operations, all your characters had names, and it was an interesting game. And Final Fantasy 3 kind of took those story aspects of Final Fantasy 2 and the what makes Final Fantasy a Final Fantasy game from Final Fantasy 1, the crystals and orphans and stuff, and made a game out of it. And Final Fantasy 4 is kind of like, all right, let's take all the learnings of the NES era of these games and make something really epic. And this is the game that people talk about being like the best Final Fantasy game. So I'm so excited to play it with that perspective, and now that I'm not so lost in these games, because now it feels more natural to play it. Now, I got into Final Fantasy a long time ago, and this is my second time recording, so... Oh no, this is one of those weird errors. This is my second time trying to record this podcast. Wait a second. Okay. So I don't know if I mentioned this already, but I got into Final Fantasy back in the late 90s when every single magazine in the world talked about Final Fantasy. Every single gaming magazine and every single gaming show or anything would just discuss Final Fantasy to no end. Final Fantasy 7 was just like this amazing game, and I didn't have a PS1 when that came out. By the time I got a PS1, I had to move overseas, move to the US, and the US has, a different encoding type. I had a hacked PS1 with like a chip in it, so it worked. It kind of worked in the US. It was black and white. Like it worked fine, but it was just black and white. So I didn't really play it, and I didn't play any of that. And then my first console after that was an Xbox, so no Final Fantasy whatsoever. I play Final Fantasy IV on my Game Boy Advance. That was the first exposure to it. But I was really into it because it showed these, beautiful environments, this beautiful world, these amazing characters. This was Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, and when Final Fantasy 10 came out, I actually had a friend who played it. And one day we were over at his house, and he started playing it, like, just randomly. He's like, well, we're waiting. I think we were going to go to a school dance, and we were waiting to go, and so he's like, all right, you know what, I'm gonna play some Final Fantasy X. Let me show you what this game looks like. And it was the most beautiful game I have ever seen, and I thought, wow, I really want to play this. I want to play this. I don't want to play anything else. I want to play this game. I still haven't beaten it. I've played it for a few hours, but and the few hours that I did play, I just loved it. And then Final Fantasy was often, especially 10, was often used in like, if you were on DeviantArt in the early 2000s, Final Fantasy 10 was a frequent favorite for fan art. And so the most beautiful, like, anime-style art, or even not anime-style art, but the most beautiful digital paintings on DeviantArt, among them were Final Fantasy X fan art very often, and Final Fantasy 7 fan art. So I was just constantly, exposed to Final Fantasy games. And I didn't get a chance to play one for a very long time after that Final Fantasy IV venture. The Final Fantasy V didn't come out for the Game Boy, neither did Final Fantasy VI. I couldn't get a DS because I didn't have money. I was poor. I was a poor immigrant, one of those, kind of a stereotype there. But I didn't have money for any of the games or consoles. So it took a while for me to even start playing Final Fantasy X. I played it on an emulator, and it was crappy, and I hated it. Then it came out for the PC, and I get excited. It came out for the Switch, and I get excited. And now I'm on this journey of playing these games. So these games often always held this, like, special place in my heart without having really played them, because of, like, me imagining just how amazing and beautiful these worlds are. I did play a bunch of Final Fantasy 13. I recently actually found out that my save, that was about 75% of the game done. I was on the second DVD disc on my Xbox 360, and I was on my way to finishing it, but I unfortunately it got corrupted. This has been that happened to me several times. I think I just have either like I'm using too old of a USB drive that just is not reliable, or maybe my Xbox is not reliable anymore. I don't know. It was just so frustrating because I was I kind of want to cry about this, but I was about 3/4 way done with Mass Effect 3, which I had never beaten. And the reason I had never beaten it is because when I got more than halfway through, my save got corrupted and I had to start over. I hated it so much. So I lost progress, and oh my god, I was done. I was 90% done with Fable 3. I literally had the last boss that I need. Well, I had the last boss that I needed to kill, and the last quest that was optional. And I don't entirely feel too bad about it because my wife was playing Fable 3, or ex-wife, I guess, was playing Fable 3, and she hated that optional quest, so I played it and beat it for her. And then she doesn't like boss fights. Like, Fable 3 is an amazing game, but she hated the boss fights. She loved some of the other fights. She loved the look of the game. She loved everything about it except for the boss fights. So I ended up doing the boss fights. So the part of the game that I didn't finish on my own save is the part of the game that I finished on her save. So it feels like I've finished it, but it also feels like I haven't. I do want to mention, so the reason I don't have the audio of Final Fantasy IV playing right now is because like I said, my Windows machine died. I'm playing this on my Linux machine, which has no GPU. So right now the fans are spinning, and you can hear that the computer is overheating a little bit. Oh no. Yeah, so and I'm playing on Linux, and this game is not out for Linux, but the compatibility layer works really damn well. Surprisingly. I think I just healed my party, right? The compatibility layer works really well. The audio sometimes gets a little bit choppy. And I didn't want to risk having this really crappy, choppy Final Fantasy IV audio in the background while I'm recording, which is more likely to happen because I'm recording, right? I'm doing something graphics intensive on top of it, so it would be, I don't know. So far, the 3D remake of this game is a little bit strange to me. I really like the art style of Final Fantasy for the SNES, and the GBA remake looks very similar, right? A lot of people said that it's just the NES version with bug fixes, which I can totally see as being a thing. Have I ventured too far? No, I haven't. Okay. So the 3D, it kind of does remind me of Final Fantasy III remake, but it is very, very different. It's not as chibi style as that. I think that's what it's called. Like it doesn't look like you're playing as a bunch of kids. This looks like you're playing as adults. There are way more polygons and better animations and everything. It's a little bit more of a polished game, but it is a little bit. It loses a little bit of its charm from being 2D. And I'm not like a purist about any of these things in any way. Like that would be anti-me. I do like this game already anyway, even though I'm at the beginning. But the Final Fantasy IV it had a beautiful, beautiful feel to it. And this 3D feel, at some points, it feels like it's a Flash game, or that it's a mobile first game, or that it uses some very generic assets. So it lost a lot of its charm because it doesn't look as unique, if that makes sense. Like, okay, so this screen is amazing. Beautiful back art, beautiful people, people models or whatever. But out here, I take that back. Those mountains look fantastic. But that grass, it just makes me think of like, somebody just threw this together for like a game jam. The mountains look nice though. They kind of look like they're painted, like watercolor painted, but not at the same time. Let's see, what else has been going on in my life? I am still working at the same place I worked at. I'm still doing a lot of coding. I have a few fun projects, programming projects that I'm working on. One of them is called Model Flux, and it's like a data layer for for like blog engines and CMSs. So you have a really nice editor where you can like add your data and everything, and then you have a very straightforward API, so you can build out your website and you don't have to worry about the backend. I always hate having to worry about a backend whenever I'm trying to build just like a quick front end app. To store some of the basics, right? Like about a post or page or images, stuff like that. So I'm working on that. What else am I working on? Oh, a Discord bot. So I've mentioned often the New Game Plus podcast that I listen to. I rebuilt a bot for their Discord recently. That was a really fun project. Let's see, what else am I working on? I rebuilt my my website, my personal website. It doesn't look that great, unfortunately. Uh-oh. What's it? What is this? Greetings and salutations again. Your name was Cecil, was it not? All right. Naming Way. So what are you doing? Mapping Way, the cartographer. I don't remember this being in the original game. Oh, that is very convenient. Okay, I actually like this. I like that idea of like, the reason a map works is because of like, the character knowing how to draw maps, or having like a magical map that draws where you go, right? Kind of like I don't have a good example actually, but it's kind of nice. All right, let's see. I like having lore around certain, like some specific mechanics of a game, especially the ones that are very like game-like. Oh, like a map. Oh, how does that work? Oh, it's a magical map. It draws itself as you walk. Like, how neat is that? Oh, I'm scared. Uh oh. Okay, see what's going on here with my thing here. I'm gonna run out. I need to run out and save because I forgot I haven't done that at all. Uh-oh. Should I run? No, it's just 7. Okay, yeah, so I can definitely be fine with this. Maybe I'll just refill in potions, do a quick save, and be done. This has been going on for like 20 minutes anyway, and who knows what I've been rambling about. I do like to mention that one of the reasons I do these vlogs, even if they don't really get any traffic or views, and I don't know who'd be even interested in it, but one of the reasons I do them is because it's fun for me to go back and to be like, oh, hey, what were my opinions 2 years ago on this random game? Or what was I up to? What did I sound like? What was my life like? What did I talk about? What does my office look like, right? In most of my vlogs, I have the red wall. That's kind of, that's what my my old office was all red. My new office is all white with a bunch of stuff behind me. So it's kind of fun for me to do these things. All right, so we got a bunch of stuff. The controller's starting to not be fun, so I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick save. Yeah. So this is interesting. So read this for a second. So the quick save says that if you select new game or load game after resuming, the save data will be deleted. The quick save data. But it doesn't mention resume or continue. So what actually does happen is that if you press on continue in these games, in Final Fantasy 3 and 4, the quick save works almost like an autosave. And so what you can do is you can do a quick save, load straight back into the game, do whatever you want to, and if you exit out, like if you kill the process, you can't die naturally, I don't think. And I don't know if that actually works in Final Fantasy 4, but you can't die naturally, at least in Final Fantasy 3. You have to like force quit the game, and once you load it back up, the continue will still be there. So it's kind of like a save anywhere save. So it's kind of cool. Oh, and just look at this art. Isn't it beautiful? The Final Fantasy games always had this beautiful art. I'm excited to play more and more of this game. But that's it for my rambling today. I think I talked enough about Final Fantasy. I don't know if I'm going to have any videos with any other games, because this is all I've been pretty much playing. Yeah. This really is pretty much all I've been playing. I can't remember any other game that I've played. Oh, I played Metroid, what is that? Metroid Zero or something like that? The one that came out for the GBA, the first... Was it Metroid Fusion? I guess Metroid Fusion. It was a fun game, but I couldn't really stream it because I have it on my DS. So... But yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll subscribe and watch some of my future vlogs.